G'day guys, it's Lockie Beresford here. This is the third video in my series on mixing Weather the Storm. If you didn't check out the last two videos, there'll be links below to each of those, as well as links to the blogs which go a little bit more in depth. The first video was all about setting up the session, getting the gain structure right, and getting your reference track happening. The second video was all about finishing off the track and getting a balance for the track. In this one, we're going to move to the mix bus and apply some mix bus processing. A lot of people feel that the mix bus shouldn't really be tackled in the mixing stage, and that's more of a thing for the mastering engineer, but it's become a lot more popular to do this, and it's called a top-down approach of mixing. So I'm just going to go through, do a basic mix with the mix bus, and at the end of it, I'll just explain each of the processes that I've added and why I've added it. So just sit back and enjoy while I get this mix happening. All right, here we go.
Ocean, light, think about it.
So that was very, very quick, but we've got ourselves a decent mix going there. And that's just using the Mixbus processing. So I'm just going to do a little bit of a toggle through all of those so you can see where we started and where we finished with that. So I'll just take each one of those off and then put them back in again. Hopefully you'll get a vibe of where we started and where we finished. All right, so I think that sounds a little bit better. As you can tell, I didn't really do that much with each of the plugins, and at this stage, not much is needed to make a big difference to the sound, and that'll help us quite a bit further in the mixing side of things. So I'm just going to go through each of the processes there with you and show you what I did and why I did it. So the first thing we've got here is the EQ. Now, I talked a little bit before about how low end tends to build up quite a bit in a mix, and this mix has quite a bit of low end in it already. So I've just put a low cut down fairly low, around 30 hertz, and most of that you won't even notice in terms of the actual sound of the mix. It's mostly just empty energy that's left in the mix, so that's kind of cleaned that up a bit. And the next thing I've done is pulled out a bit of the low mids. You probably saw how I swept through the lows trying to find the sound that I didn't want, and then I've pulled it out, and I didn't take out that much of it. I only took out about 1.5 dB from there, and that's enough to get rid of that woolly sound that those low mids are associated with. And I think it sounds quite a bit better. You can really hear it when you bypass this plugin. I felt the track needed a little bit more presence, so that's where the vocal kind of sits. That's the high mid section there. So around 2 kilohertz, I've given it quite a substantial boost of 2.2 decibels, and then I've given the high end above that just a tiny little boost as well. So most of this EQing has been taking out a bit of low end and putting in quite a bit of high end, but you can see I've left the actual low end where between about 30 and 120 decibels, 120 hertz is left untouched, and that's where our kick drum really kicks in. So I think this EQ has really given it a lot more punch to the mix. The next thing I've done is put a compressor in. Now, I haven't used this compressor in its traditional sense, the way that most people using it would, especially in a mix bus situation. Usually compressors used to take down the loud parts of the song and bring up the quieter sections of the track. The way I've used this compressor is more of a pumping action for the dance beat that's beneath the track. So I've got it set so it's only really getting triggered by the kick and the snare drum on those beats. You can see I've set the threshold around there. It's got a medium amount of reduction in the ratio, so 4.2, but I've jumped up the attack enough so that it leaves the start of that kick and snare alone. So when that comes in, you still get the full impact of the transient at the start of the kick and the snare. It really comes in after that's ducked down, and I've set the release slow enough so that it pulls away and then gets back to where it was just before the next hit. And this creates that real pumpy sound, and what you're hearing, you'll hear if you go back and listen. When I bypass it, it's all very straight, and when I turn that compressor on, it adds a bit of that boppy feel to the track that you didn't get before. And I chose both of these this EQ and this compressor because they come free with Pro Tools. A lot of the times I would want to use other EQs and compressors because I'm used to them, but I thought I'd use ones that come free so that you know that you can use stuff that you don't have to pay a fortune for and it'll sound decent. The last thing in my processing chain is this one, which actually does cost a bit of money. It's a tape emulation by Slate, and this adds tape saturation to the track. There's not much rhyme and reason to the settings behind this. I've used this quite a few times, and I've found that the 15 inches per second with the half-inch 2-track on the FG456, that just tends to give me a little bit more low end and a nice smooth high end. You can mess around with these settings on this. The reason I pulled down the output a bit is because it was adding a little bit of gain to my mix, so I really wanted to hear it. When I bypass it, I want to hear the effect of the unit without adding any extra gain. So I pulled that down just so I can keep the level the same. And that's about it. So there was a fairly quick mix on that, on the mix bus. There's a bit more you can do to it, but I'm just going to leave it there because I think that sounds pretty good. And I'm just going to do a little bit of a A-B with Jay's mix that he sent me originally, and with only getting the levels right, changing the kick and snare a little bit, and doing some mix bus processing, we'll see where we started and where we ended up on this mix so far. And we've still got a fair way to go, but this is where we are so far. So I'm just going to give you a little bit of an A-B here with that. Alright, you can hear that my mix is quite a bit more energetic with that drum beat. That's mostly just because I decided to turn the drum beat up quite a bit compared to his mix, plus the adding of the extra kicks in there and the different kick and snare sound does make quite a bit of difference there. The other thing you'll note is that my mix has a lot less low end in it. It's a lot less muddy. I mean, Jay's done a great job and he's just getting into the mixing world, so I commend him on his efforts. But he did want me to show him how I could clean up his mix a little bit. And these are all little things that I've done to clean this mix up a bit. So I'm just going to leave it there for this one. Read the blog. There'll be a link below to that, and that'll go a little bit more in depth with what I've been talking about here. And if you have any questions or comments, just hit me up in the comment section below. And until next time, have a good one, guys. Catch you later.